So in this third session, we're looking at secularism, which is a way of not seeing, and indeed even of not looking. The Second Vatican Council, again, it noted that because progress in the sciences and technology focuses so predominantly on observable data, we can easily start to assume that what can't be known by the sciences can't be known at all. And consequently, we no longer even look for higher realities. Unquote. The Council's attitude to the sciences was absolutely positive, and it affirmed that scientific thinking doesn't have to lead to agnosticism. Allowing secular reality to be its secular self and respecting the proper autonomy of the sciences, that's not secularism. That's right and proper and necessary. And you'll know why I'm saying it if you remember that animist religions, they saw the world as the abode of gods and demiurges and demons, and they had people tiptoeing around, as it were, being sure that they didn't breach some sort of taboo, even by accident, and then found themselves having to appease presumably angry gods and never being quite sure whether they had. Animist religions had that kind of thinking, and as you realize, that kind of thinking leaves little or no room for human creativity or for human responsibility for the planet or the development of the sciences or even human rights. And it was Judeo-Christian faith that changed all that by proclaiming that there's one God who made all things good, who wants us to enjoy our lives, harness the world's energies, and exercise responsibility. So the liberation of secular reality, the world, to be genuinely secular, owes much to the faith that came down to us from Abraham. Moreover, the Hebrew people, their experience of God came to them through their experience of a love which they knew they had not merited, they had not deserved, that was not owing to them, and that is what was being taught to them through their experience of sin and failure. The New Testament writers, in turn, would emphasize that our experience of sin and failure also puts into relief the mercy and graciousness of God, in its emphasis that salvation is gift and pure grace. That's the point of all history. It's also the point of failure and sin in the Christian church. It's God's way of allowing us to come to the realization that salvation is mercy. That reveals the kind of God that God is. So secularism, even when it's lived in more or less good faith, is a huge deprivation. Because when people don't know how greatly they're loved by God, then they don't know how greatly they matter, or even if they matter at all. And is there anything we need to know more than that? After all, life isn't fair. It takes away those nearest and dearest to us, sometimes in tragic ways. People can find themselves trapped in impossible situations. Human beings continue to commit terrible atrocities against one another. Well, to live in that kind of world, people need a reason for hope that stands beyond the reach of every kind of disaster and can still find meaning even in disaster. And that's what people are deprived of if they have no reason for hope beyond what this world can offer. Worse still, the descendants of Abraham, and I mean the Jewish people, the Muslim people, and the Christian people have to accept some responsibility for the way agnostics have their doubts and secularism's indifference. The Second Vatican Council acknowledged that on behalf of Christians. And how we do this, we scandalize by that split between our faith and our daily lives that I mentioned earlier. We scandalize them by religious fundamentalism, which they know makes extraordinary claims that can't be true. And we scandalize them by versions of religiosity that are light, L-I-T-E, and unsatisfying. For example, pious practices that imply the need to earn God's love. And one can remember the ways in which people strained at trying to do that and the neuroses they ended up with. Or practices which suppose we can put God in our debt. For example, certain practices, if you do this for 9 successive days, then God's going to have to do this. We can't put God in our debt. We're diminishing God by that sort of religiosity. Claims that would put a limit on God's love or God's presence or God's mercy. Religious practices that see worship as somehow separable from daily life. And that really is a scandal. Or even that see church going as the main measure of Christian discipleship. Religion that presents a diminished God is a diminished religion, and it cannot satisfy hearts that are made for the infinite God. Anything that we can earn or manage or arrange for ourselves ultimately can never satisfy our thirst for the infinite. And walking away from that kind of religion won't seem any big deal at all. And I wonder, is this what we are already seeing? I wonder if this is what Rana meant when he predicted that tomorrow one will either be a mystic, a contemplative, or won't even be a Christian at all. In the next session, we'll look at the relevance of all this to specific aspects of social, economic, and political life. Thank you.